Hey, today we're going to talk about taking back your turn. What does that mean? It means that when someone is completely done their combo, they can't stagger it, they can't do anything else, it's time for you to take back your turn. Maybe that's not a good example because Jade was plus on block, but for example here, -4, there's nothing else she can do. She can't special cancel after the third hit. It's time for you to take back your turn, to hit her, to do something, and she has to block. If she doesn't block, she tries to mash or something. In most circumstances, if you poke first or something like that, you go for a mid, you'll hit them because it's not their turn. There are a couple ways to do that. First, we'll talk about styles. There are some people who play this game by being overly aggressive. So for example, what they'll do is their turn is over, right? But then they still continue instead of block. So technically, you should do this as a Jade and block and wait for your opponent's attack. But some people will do this, then poke, and then it will continue because a poke touched, right? So what can you do in that situation? Well, in this circumstance, Jade is able to do that because she's only -3. This means that you can move 3 frames faster than her, but she still gets a poke in. In that case, when you fight overly aggressive players, the best thing to do is to simply poke out of it. Poke to take back your turn. So, okay, that's what she does, right? She does that. I try to take back my turn, I get poked. So the reason why I get poked like that is because I try to take back my turn with a high. But even if I go for a mid, let's say I go for Cetrion's forward 2, which is 14 frames. This time we trade, okay? But let's say I'm a bit slower with lag. See, she's still able to poke me from time to time unless I'm super quick. So what you can do here is you take back your turn by poking her. You poke her first. So my advice to you is when you fight people who never want to let go of their turn, you always take back your turn with a poke. Like that, right? So here, even with my slow down 4, which is 10 frames, I'm still able to poke her out of it first, right? And then use that hit advantage to gel into something else. Like that. So that is my advice against people who don't respect when their turn is over. Now, at some point after you do this, Jade is going to start to, instead of responding with a poke after her turn is over, she's not going to do this anymore because she'll learn. She'll learn that you punish or that you take back your turn with pokes, or it doesn't have to be pokes, but anything else than a high. Anything that's fast other than a high. So what she'll do then, she'll start blocking like this. Okay, so let's say that she does that. So now she learns, right, that I poke. And that's what happens. So as soon as I poke, she respects it. So what can you do? You know that after you've poked on block, your turn is over, right? You can't do this and then on block and go in for the kill. Because if she responds properly on reaction, you're going to get punished. You can be in a situation where you take back your turn with pokes and she blocks it all. She's respectful, she plays the game properly, she blocks it all. So the problem here is that you're going to be always poking on block and you keep waiting until she's done it, poking on block, you wait. And your only thing that you're going to be doing is to simply constantly poke her on block. Nothing happens, and she knows that, so she knows she can only block once and then she can continue fighting you. When your opponent is respectful, like this, when Jade is doing this, right? She blocks. You know she's gonna block. She's not gonna mash anymore. She doesn't do down 1 after that string. So instead of taking your turn with pokes, now don't take your turn with pokes. Now it's time to take your turn with highs or even slower mids, right? Because you know she's gonna be blocking at the end. The reason why you would want to take back your turn with other than this is, like I said, because your turn is over after a poke and now you have to block. Whereas when you go for normals, you can stagger them. And when you stagger, staggering means that you don't give up your turn. You confuse your opponent to never give up your turn. Whereas when you do poke on block, your turn is over, that's it, that's all, and you have to block. So only take back your turn with pokes on opponents that are not respecting that their turn is over, that are mashing down 1 after their turn is over. And I would recommend that when you start fighting someone, if you're a defensive player like me and you're testing the waters, take back your turn with pokes and see how they react. If they're respectful and they keep blocking, then that's when you can be comfortable and start to take back your turn with highs, knowing that you're not going to get poked. So that is my advice for you on taking back your turn. Take back your turn with pokes initially. Take back your turn with pokes on opponents that are overly aggressive. And when your opponent starts to be a little bit more defensive, now take back your turn with normal standing 1s and standing 2, things like that. Another thing too, so right, if you know that your opponent is a defensive player anyways, he respects when his turn is over, there's no need to start responding with lows. You can just go ahead, and respond with highs and things along those lines. And that's when shimmying starts getting important. Shimmying is that you do an attack that looks similar to a grab. Now, none of these two characters have it, but for example, Cassie, that would be a situation where you could simply take back your turn with 1/1/1, even though you start with a high, because you know she's going to block anyways, and that's when you can open her up because she thinks you're going for a grab, right? And those are situations where, of course, if they respect that their turn is over, you can finally grab them and stuff along those lines. Just make sure that you constantly look at your opponent to see how they react, because if they go back to their bad habits and start poking when their turn is supposed to be over, that's when you have to respond again with taking back your turn with pokes. Okay guys, that's it for me. That was a quick tip. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a good one. Peace.